welcome to the Ballet Help Desk podcast. My name is Jenny, and I'm joined by my co-founder, Brett. We are both proud ballet moms who met backstage at our children's recital. During our kids' training, we found that resources were limited. We relied on Dance Magazine and fellow parents in the lobby for information. Now that our children are embarking on their professional careers, we're excited to share our combined 20 years of experience as ballet moms with all of you. We'll be bringing in experts to help make sense of this complex world of ballet training. As we enter week 2 of our summer intensive boot camp, our focus shifts towards research and planning. Today, Brett and I will be discussing factors you should consider when looking at programs. We believe that it's important to carefully evaluate the options available to your dancer, and we hope to provide you with some valuable insights and guidance today. So let's jump right in.
Hello, and welcome back to the Ballet Help Desk podcast. We are in week 2 of our summer intensive boot camp. And we wanted to talk to you this week about researching programs and scheduling ballet summer intensive auditions. We have a lot of material, so settle in and let's get started.
Thanks so much for joining us. The first topic that we would like to discuss is making decisions as a family about summer. When we were talking about this with Abby, as you can imagine, talking to a young kid is not always the most reliable source for information, but we really wanted to figure out her goals, what she wanted to get out of a summer. And the thing for us, I don't know about you, Brett, but cost always really mattered to us. We have another kid, we take summer vacations, and so really want to make sure that it fits within our budget. 10 years old, 11 years old, ballet is important, yes, but we're not putting the bulk of our summer family budget towards ballet training for an 11-year-old. So just have some family discussions about what is important to you.
Think about how much money you're willing to spend for a young kid when it's really sort of like summer camp.
As your dancer gets older and more serious, bigger portion of your summer budget can go towards summer intensives, a serious conversation with your family deciding how much of that you want to spend on summer and how long they want to go. Another thing is think about your dancer's home studio, and do they allow for students to go away? Is there an age cutoff for that? In addition, if your home studio does not allow for dancers to go away, are you prepared to have that discussion with your home studio? And feel free to reach out to us if you want some tips on how to talk to your home studio about that, because that is something that Abby did have to do. She was the only one who went away, and that was kind of tricky. She was competing at that time as well. And so, we always kind of saved room for nationals for her competition studio, but a lot of them did a booty camp or some sort of intensive thing at her home competition studio, and Abby was not there for that. So make sure that you have those really upfront conversations with your home studio so they understand what your kid's schedule looks like. For us as a family, we also had that discussion with Abby about time off. And summer is a time that she really wanted to swim and play with her friends and go to the lake and go water ski and do all of those kinds of things. And so for us, we really had those conversations with her to help avoid burnout and things like that about how much time she really wants to take off to rest and recuperate, because those are things as a family you have to decide as well, because ballet is one of those creeping elegance things that does start to take over your whole schedule. And then you get into this scarcity mindset where you can't take time out because you think everyone's getting ahead of you. And that is not true. We here at Ballet Help Desk really do believe in what Elizabeth Sullivan talks about, and talks about time off, resting, recuperating, letting your body just have some time off and to go have some fun, because ballet is supposed to be fun.
I think that the other thing to think about, and I think it depends on your own kid, is your dancer ready to go away, right? Like some kids are ready to go away when they're 11 or 12. Others may not be, and either way is fine, but you really need to talk about that as a family on whether or not your dancer is ready to go away. And the other thing I did want to add is Jenny had mentioned something about whether or not your studio will let a dancer go away. Sometimes they actually have pretty good reasons for that. So sometimes studios are concerned, and I've seen this in Facebook groups, and I've heard this from dancers, is that sometimes studios are concerned about the training that students are going to get when they go away, and not that it's good or bad, but that it might be inconsistent with what they're getting in their home studio. So parents, just think about that as you're getting ready to have conversations with your home studio, because that may be a concern that a studio director might have. And it also may be as simple as revenue. Studios need a consistent revenue stream. And so they may just want to make sure they have students through the summer. But know that it's not always nefarious if a studio isn't letting a dancer go away. It may be as simple as they think that the kids just aren't ready.
Absolutely. And to build on that, use your home studio teacher as a resource. Have conversations with them about your student. If your student really is ready to go away, what those next step looks like. Use them as a partner. Don't look at it as an adversarial relationship where you're telling them what you want. Really, really include them in those conversations, and you will really reap a lot of rewards from it because they have invaluable information to share with you.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that was actually the first step we always took when Sam was starting to research summer programs. We always had him schedule a meeting with his home studio to ask them, where do you think I should go? And that carried through even when he was at San Francisco Ballet School. He would always talk to his teachers about where they thought he should go. And honestly, some of his teachers had some pretty firm opinions about where he shouldn't go. And that turned out to be pretty valuable advice. So, once you've had that discussion as a family and you've agreed that, okay, my dancer's going to go away, go talk to your home studio, because they're, as Jenny had mentioned, like, they're in your corner and they will have good advice.
Absolutely. Anecdotally, Abby and Sam really wanted to go to a specific program, and they went as a collective, and they went and spoke to their artistic director, and he actually had very firm opinions with them about what program, at what age they should go to specific programs. And he actually had very valid reasons for that. And if the kids had not gone and talked to the director, Brett and I probably would have sent the kids to a program that they probably wouldn't have gotten a lot from, because they needed to wait a little bit to go to that program to maximize their time there. So really do look at your ADs or your school directors as partners, because they really do want what is best for your kids.
Okay, let's talk about research, right? Like when our kids were younger, there wasn't any of this. So parents who are going down this path now, lucky you, because there's a lot more than we had when our kids were younger. And there are a couple of ways you can start researching summer programs. The first is talk to your friends, right? Like, talk to your friends who may have older dancers. They're going to have really good advice. And it may not be exactly the advice you're looking for, because everybody's dancers are different. But the more people you talk to, the better off you'll be. Also, read our reviews. I can't believe we have 758 reviews as of today, or maybe 759, over 160 programs. And yeah, there are people that you may not know, but you're going to start to see some trends in our reviews that will really help you guide your decision making. And then also, we have a little handy dandy spreadsheet on our boot camp landing page. Feel free to download it. It's there as an Excel spreadsheet. It's also there as a Google sheet. It's got everything we would have wanted to know and to write down as we were planning auditions for our kids. So check it out. It's there. A couple of other things to think about. Think about if you need to travel for auditions. So we had the luxury of living in San Francisco. And so all of the schools that our kids were interested in going to for the summer, they all came through San Francisco. And so that was really easy, but not everybody has that luxury. So think about if you need to spend a weekend in a different city, or if you need to even fly somewhere. And then conversely, if you're not planning to travel, think about if you have to do a video audition. Video auditions are definitely a viable option. And we have a couple podcast episodes coming up in the coming weeks where they talk about video auditions and how adjudicators actually treat them. So stay tuned for that. There's another thing you can consider, and that is there are these organizations that stage auditions for multiple summer programs at once. And the largest is something called the National Summer Intensive Audition. And it allows dancers to audition for several mid-sized programs all at once. The thing to consider about this is it could get big, and not all of the people who are actually looking at you are in the room. And so for a lot of people, the audition gets filmed, and then the artistic directors who are looking at students will watch it later on. However, it does allow a dancer to audition for several mid-sized programs all at once. And if you're limited on time or you have to travel a long distance for auditions, this could be a great opportunity to get in front of a lot of summer intensive directors all at once. And as I mentioned before, in an upcoming podcast, we're going to be talking to Lauren Fadley-Vayette, and she's the principal of the Kansas City Ballet School, and she has actually been involved with the NSIA and has some tips for how to maneuver through that.
Right. And I would like to interject really fast about the NSIA audition. It is a way also, when your dancer is older, to get in front of several, probably 12 different schools that also will offer out of the video audition either invitations to come or straight out offers for year-round training for their trainee or second company. So it is a very nice way to get in front of a whole bunch of companies, not just for summer, but also if you are in that summer / bridge year training or era of your trajectory. It is a really nice way to get in front of a whole bunch of companies. And lots of times they want you to come for summer and then to guarantee your spot, but offers do come out of that as well, which I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention. And also, the registration for that tends to open after Thanksgiving. I've seen a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook where people are panicking because they haven't seen the portal open yet. And it tends not to open until after Thanksgiving, just as a tip.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, I've been looking at that link, and I keep getting a big screen that just shows like, enter your password, which tells you it's not up and ready to go yet.
Correct.
And there are also a couple of others. There's one that happens at what's known as COCA, and it's in St. Louis, and it's the Center of Creative Arts, better known as COCA. And that's called the Regional Summer Intensive Audition. And obviously, as the name indicates, more regional programs do attend this one, but that's another one to consider. And then there's also one in California, and I can't remember the name of it, but there's a multi-school audition that takes place. I think it's in Southern California. So keep your eyes open for that one as well.
Yeah, that one happens right around New Year's, I believe.
Right. Let's talk about some things to think about when you're researching programs. There are a whole bunch, and we're going to go through them. But the main thing to think about is housing. To me, that was always the big one, is does the program offer housing? And although both of our kids did attend programs that offered housing for their first away summer intensive, and I put away in quotes, neither of us had our kids stay there. In subsequent years, they always went to programs that provided dorms or some dorm equivalent. But that first year, both of us decided that we just weren't that comfortable with our kids staying in the dorms. Jenny, do you want to talk about that a little bit with housing and kind of the things to consider with that?
Sending your kid away to do this kind of intensive training is not to be taken lightly. Every kid is really ready at a different time. And so really talk to your kid and think about your kid, how they would deal with things like homesickness, how far away the program is from you, and also consider how your kid is in terms of how they deal with complicated social dynamics. They're dealing with a roommate, especially if your kid has never shared a room before. That is definitely something that can be really, really tricky. And every kid goes in thinking that their roommate is going to be their best friend. And actually, that was not how it worked out for Abby. Like, we preemptively had that conversation with, you just have to live well together, right? You don't actually have to be best friends. And that's something that most kids have to deal with in college. And it's not something you deal with younger. So have those preemptive conversations with your kids about how to deal with some of those social dynamics because they can get tricky. Dorm living is really fun. There is so many great things for the kids to do. The RAs have fun projects for them, but it is tricky. And the kids, you really have to think about that, your child, and if they are really ready to handle that kind of independence and responsibility, like laundry. I don't know if Sam had like something he was stuck on, but Abby's thing was laundry. She was so concerned about figuring out how to use the machines, how it worked, how much detergent to use, what that all looks like. We practiced for weeks. And the first thing every single time she got there, she was like, okay, let's go look at the laundry machines. And we had to like walk through how the machines worked. And but she still was always so anxious about that. So really talk to your kids about the things that's kind of sticky for them. It seems so silly to me that she was so hung up on laundry. But, when you're researching programs, really look at those things. Where are the laundry facilities? What does that look like for your kid? How far do they have to walk for food? At Boston, she had to walk half a mile to the cafeteria for all of her meals. So think about those things as you are researching those programs, because those are those nitty-gritty things that those all add into their day. Also look at the transportation and what that looks like. Do they take public transportation on their own? How do they get from the dorms to the studio? So like Houston has a bus. Boston, they gave those kids a T-Pass and said, your time to get there. And so Abby at 13 had to go from the BU dorms all the way to the Boston studios. And that was not a small commute that they had to do on their own. So just really research that when you're looking into programs. Another suggestion that we would like to talk about is some young dancer programs offer housing, some do not. Some big name programs offer housing, some do not. So really look at that and decide what your family is comfortable with. If your child is comfortable staying in an apartment with a few other students and commuting, or if they really want more dorm style living. And that is up to the individual. Do you want to go with your dancer? So it really does depend on what you're comfortable with as a family.
One other point that I will make is that if most kids do stay in the dorms, think about if you want your dancer staying outside the dorms, because a lot of the social dynamics happen outside of the studio. So just a quick thing to consider, that if your dancer's looking at programs with housing and most stay in there, it's probably a good idea to look at what everybody else is doing, because you don't want your dancer to be the odd kid out. Also, parents of boys, because not every summer program attracts a critical mass of boys, really look hard at the housing situation. Because if there are dorms, but the program doesn't attract a lot of boys, there is no guarantee that your dancer will be with somebody the same age. So parents of boys, just look into that. And one other thing I want to talk about too is meal plans. Meal plans are not a guarantee. So just because there's housing doesn't mean there's also a meal plan. So when you're looking at summer programs, look at the food situation, because like Ellison in New York, they have housing, but no food. So there are some programs where your student might be asked to cook. I think Miami City is another one that you are on your own for food. So think about that. And also, if your dancer has specialized food requirements, I'll kick this over to Jenny, because her daughter has had to deal with specialized diets the entire time she's been going to summer programs.
Yeah, I mean, Abby has celiac disease, and so that does require a very strict diet. There are some programs that were really great. Honestly, I think Walnut Hill kind of spoiled her, because their chef there made her a specialized meal for her that she got to order every single day. And then there were other programs where she literally had salad and boiled chicken for 3 weeks. So to be fair, programs were able to accommodate her in some way. So don't rule out programs saying there's no way they could do it, or they can only cook for themselves, because Abby did not get cross-contaminated. I think in any of her programs, maybe one, but for the most part, she really was able to eat safely. So don't feel like you have to go with them and really babysit them through that, because the kids really actually are able to navigate a lot of those food issues pretty safely. The cafeterias tend to be tied up with colleges, so they're used to dealing with specialty diets. Another thing when you're researching programs is the financial obligation of each program. Summers are expensive, really, really expensive. However, some programs do offer very generous merit and need-based financial aid. If you think your family will need some of that financial support, reach out to those programs. They do have financial aid deadlines. So check in with each of those programs, look at their website and see what they offer, because that really could help you with the financial burden of the summer program.
Right. And parents of boys, I'm talking to you here. The reality is that there are more scholarships out there for boys. There just aren't enough male dancers out there to fill all of the summer programs that run every summer. At the bigger programs, this doesn't typically hold true, but for the medium and small size programs, it's definitely the case. They are using money to attract the boys. So if you're the parent of a boy, while not everyone gets scholarships, the likelihood is greater if you're a boy. And parents of girls, don't despair. We know plenty of girls who have gotten scholarships, even at the biggest and most prestigious of programs.
That is true.
So let's talk about what you want to be looking at for when your dancer is at a program. So there are a lot of factors to consider. One that's really important is what technique is taught. So if your dancer is at a heavy Vaganova school, do you want to be considering programs that will be consistent and will teach Vaganova for the summer? Or conversely, at a Balanchine school, do you want to go to a program that only teaches Balanchine? And honestly, most summer intensives, both inside and outside the US, they teach kind of a mishmash of techniques. You'll see it referred to in a lot of publications as, quote, general classical. And that's kind of a hodgepodge of everything. But some are more focused. Like I said, Vaganova and Balanchine are two that come to mind. Yes, we know Balanchine is a style, not a technique, but for today, let's talk about it as a technique.
Brett, do not dive into that. That is a very hot button topic that I think we do not want to touch.
It is a hot button topic.
No, I have to say, Abby really did use her summers, and this is something that I would recommend for parents, to use your summers to fill in holes in your overall general dance knowledge of all the different, as many styles as possible. Once your basic foundations are set, Abby really used her summers to round out and be as complete a dancer as possible. So, for example, she really wanted to learn the Bournonville technique. So she went to Royal Danish to go get some Bournonville in her body. And Sam did the same with Balanchine, right? He went to SAB for the summer.
Yeah, he did, because he was at that age where he knew Balanchine rep was in everything, but hadn't had a lot of it. So yeah, he decided to go spend some time learning it.
Another consideration, whether your dancer wants to go to this program year round. So if your dancer is ready to head off to a residential ballet program, many programs use the summer as a time to recruit talent.
That your dancer should consider when they're looking at programs, and also when they're there, is whether or not this is a program they might want to attend year round. And if they are, you should understand what the process is to get in. And we can speak from experience. Both of our kids have been to a lot of programs where during the summer, there's either an informal or a formal way to indicate interest that the dancer wants to stay for the year. One example is SAB, School of American Ballet. Their summer program is basically a 5-week audition for their year-round program. You know, the downside of that is that can be super stressful. And when Sam was at SAB, he saw it. There were a bunch of kids that were there that really wanted to get in for the year, and the stress levels were through the roof. But, you know, if you're just going for the summer and you're not interested in staying for the year, it can be a lot of fun. And I mean, let me tell you, he had a great time in New York for 5 weeks, not planning to stay for the year. But, you know, it's good to know that if that's something that your dancer might want to do, you want to know that up front. And that information is usually available in the summer intensive materials that are on a school's website. So it makes sense to understand this process before you move forward with it. And also, just a heads up, there are other ways to get into a year-round program, but by going to the summer program, your dancer can get a feel for it. They can get to know the vibe, they can get a feel for the teaching, and they can kind of see what it's like with the kids and just get an overall sense of what it might be like to be there for the year. You also get a sense of what the city's like that you might be in. And I think that's really important. However, have a plan B. Like, don't have all your eggs in the year-round basket just from the one summer program you're going to, because if it doesn't work out, then you're kind of stuck. So another consideration to think about is how many classes are offered each day. And some programs are more low key and some are more intense. Houston, my son went twice to Houston Ballet, and they have a very full schedule of classes. The days are really, really full. So if you are considering Houston, be really physically ready, because when you get there, you're jumping right in. There are also some schools that have a reputation for not having enough classes or for having like oddball schedules. And we want to dispel one myth. For years, we were told by teachers and other parents, oh, don't even look at SAB. They just don't have enough classes. Like it's boring. There's not enough stuff to do and the classes are short. And people would say, oh, but it's because they're so intense. They have really few classes, but they're really intense while you're taking them. Well, yeah, they are. Sam did not find them to be any more intense than other programs. And honestly, there were plenty of classes. So I don't know if that was the case several years ago, but post-COVID, the class schedule was more than adequate.
And we got several reviews, and I can speak from personal experience as well, that both Boston Ballet and San Francisco Ballet, they do have multi-hour breaks in between classes. So if that is something that is a deal breaker for your dancer, then make sure that you take that into consideration when choosing your programs. For some, especially young dancers, the scheduled outings are important as well. Usually, it's not a thing that is the deciding factor, but if two programs are otherwise equal, then maybe this may help with the decision. Most programs offer weekend field trips. Some go to the beach or a water park or a science museum. Others take the entire program to see a ballet company perform. Like Abby went to Sarasota to go watch New York City Ballet when she was in Boston, which was really fun. Some go to baseball games. These are outings that they list in the handbook, and they're really, really fun. And if you financially can't afford them, really consider sending your child on them. Programs also differ what their last few days look like. Some offer a day where parents can observe class. Others have students do a small demonstration of what they've learned over the past several weeks, and others do a full stage show. You should discuss with your dancer what they prefer when they're compiling that list, because it is something to consider what they really should work on in one of their goals of the summer. So if your student really wants to work on performing, or if they really want to just buckle down in technique, really consider that in your research plan. Okay, so next we're going to discuss determining your audition schedule. I know this is a lot of information. Do you want to talk about this, Brett?
Yeah, sure. I know it's a lot. And also, we have a blog post on this. So if you are listening to this and you're feeling like you're missing some details, go check out the blog post because we've got all the stuff covered in that. But let's say you've got your list, right? Like you've created your audition list now. Now it's really time to start scheduling. And that can be time consuming. One thing that can be a great resource, and we are lucky enough to be joined by the co-founder of this organization soon, you can take advantage of it. It's called Ballet Scout. And it was co-founded by Robert Fulton, who is a dancer with the Nevada Ballet. And it's fantastic. It's kind of a one-stop shop for all things related to auditioning for ballet programs. And they have information on auditions for summer intensives, year-round programs, and company auditions. So any audition you want for the ballet world, they've got you covered. They also have some really great search tools. And this is what I like about it is, let's say you want to find all of the auditions that are happening in Chicago the weekend of January 15th. Plug that in and it'll spit back every summer intensive audition that's scheduled based on the parameters that you put in. So if you're like driving from Des Moines to Chicago, you'll be able to quickly establish a schedule that is based on a particular weekend. And so it's a subscription-based service, but I think it's really well worth it. And Jenny, I know you used it with Abby when she was creating her audition schedule for bridge programs and companies last year, right?
We did. It's a fantastic service, and I highly recommend it. I found it to be an exceptionally useful and easy to use tool. It was, I believe I paid $10 a month for it, but it was well worth it, and it saved me hours of scouring websites trying to patch together what auditions would be in what place at what day. It saved a huge amount of time. So I cannot recommend it highly enough. And scheduling summer intensive auditions is really complicated. If you're lucky enough to live in near a major city, it is easier. But if you need to travel, it really is more complicated. For summer intensives are simply a ballet class, and they are typically about 90 minutes. Our recommendation, and Robert confirmed this in our interview, is that you schedule as many auditions as closely together as possible. If you go someplace for a weekend, do 2 on Saturday and possibly 2 more on Sunday, if that is feasible for your dancer. And really, that's just like 2 classes at their normal ballet school. So stamina-wise, they should be fine in terms of doing that much dance in a day. Why do you want to schedule all of these auditions as close as possible? Well, let us tell you, it comes down to timing. Schools usually send out admission rejection notifications within 7 to 10 business days. Once the notifications go out, students must reply with a decision, and often with a deposit, within 2 weeks. This total elapsed time between audition time and when you must make the initial payment, it can be as little as 3 weeks. So if you have auditions scheduled for the first week of January and then one for the second week of February, this does not give you enough time to complete all your auditions before decisions must be made. This does not even include any video auditions that were submitted to both US and overseas companies if you choose to apply to programs in Europe. Note, most European programs do not notify you until much later in the year, well past when replies to US programs are due. Be sure to consider the financial implications of auditioning for US programs while auditioning for overseas programs as well. If your dancer is auditioning for both and has their heart set on Europe, you may be looking to put down a deposit on a US program to secure a spot while waiting for notifications from Europe. And just remember that those deposits usually are non-refundable.
Definitely take that into consideration. We actually ran into that when Sam was going to go to Houston. So yeah, and those installments or those deposits are not cheap. So just keep that in mind. Let's talk about what's next. In our next installment of the Ballet Help Desk Summer Intensive Bootcamp, we are focusing on the boys. So like many things in ballet, young boys face unique challenges when it comes to choosing summer intensives. And it's really because there's this limited pool. So not all programs get enough of them to round out their summer classes. And so this has implications for everything from distribution of classes to the availability of partnering instruction. So we have gathered a group of longtime ballet boy parents to talk about some of the things that boys need to consider when they're looking at programs, and also some of the things that we as parents of boys may have done differently had we known then what we know now. And then after that, we're going to hear from Emily Bruner. She's a professional dance photographer. So she's going to provide a really detailed overview of everything you need to know to shoot great audition photos and videos. And she's also been generous enough to provide us with a list of tips and tricks that we will be putting up on our website. So stay tuned for all of that.
Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.
If you liked what you heard on this episode, please take a moment and help us spread the word. Follow us and leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform. Tell a friend and share on your social media. Also, now that your dancer has returned from their summer intensives, please head over to ballethelpdesk.com and leave an anonymous review of the program. Help your fellow dance parents by letting them learn all about the good, the bad, and everything in between. If you would like to learn more about our Summer Intensive Bootcamp, head over to our website, ballethelpdesk.com, and visit our Summer Intensive Bootcamp page and or read all of our Summer Intensive reviews. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions you may have. Happy researching! To stay in the loop on all of our latest content, subscribe to our newsletter at ballethelpdesk.com and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until next time, have a great day.